Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Desiree, Rover, medical research journalist in the Netherlands. And today, February 19, 2017, I have a marvelous guest for you with a very, very, very important subject that is important to all of us because we all breathe, and it has to do with what is being sprayed into the air already for years, decades even. I have in my virtual studio Marvin Hendon, PhD. Welcome, Marvin.
Hi there. Thank you. I'm delighted to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. Well, so am I. I'm delighted as well because I know how awfully important this subject is and how many people try to discard it as nonsense, and anyway, they don't understand what's really going on, and you have been really looking at what comes down from the heavens towards us and what sort of awful repercussions that has for health and for the soil and for so many other things. But first, Marvin, you have a lot of studies behind you. So could you please elaborate on that for starters?
Well, what I would like to do is to explain something about what happened to me when I was when I wore younger clothes. I had just finished my PhD, 2 months, and I was on the campus of the University of California at San Diego, and I ran into a professor that I knew, and he of course asked me what had transpired, and I explained what I was doing, and he invited me to give a seminar. And so a few weeks later, that's what I did. Now, in the audience, there were two very distinguished individuals. One was Nobel laureate Harold C. Urey, and the other was Professor Dr. Hans E. Suess. Now, both of these individuals had remarkable backgrounds. Harold Urey, as a young man, was in a sense, an apprentice to Niels Bohr. Everybody knows who Niels Bohr is.
Yes.
Hans Suess learned not only academically, but learned from his father, Franz Suess, who was a famous geologist, who in turn learned from his father, who was no less than Edward Suess, the famous Edward Suess, the face of the earth. This was a handing down knowledge from person to person, important knowledge. So I gave my seminar, and after the seminar there were questions, and then Hans Suess came up and introduced himself and invited me to stop by his office the next day. And I said, of course, and I arranged a time. But all through the evening, I wondered, why? Had I said something wrong and he just wanted to correct me privately? What was this? So anyway, I made the appointed meeting. And first he talked about his own background. Among other things, he was a German atomic scientist at the heavy waterworks in Norway. And he was 1/8 Jewish, which put him in sort of a bad spot, but he somehow wasn't noticed. And he had made many discoveries, and he told me a little bit about these things. And then he stopped and he looked at me like he was looking right through me. And I knew now is the time. And what he did was he invited me to spend 3 years doing any research that I wanted to do, just learning from him and from Harold Urey. Wow. After I picked myself up off the floor.
Yes, I can imagine.
And I didn't need the research position. I had a postdoctoral position, but I immediately said yes, because this is very unusual. 6 months later, Hansus asked me if I knew why I was chosen. And I said, no, I've always wondered, but I never thought it was my place to ask. And he said, after the seminar, there were questions. And he mentioned one question in particular, and that I had long since forgotten. And he mentioned my answer. And my answer was, that's simply not known. That question can't be answered. The knowledge simply is not known. Seuss said not 1 in 1,000 young scientists would give that answer. And then he went on to say, it is more important to know what is not known than to know what is known. So for 3 years, I had the benefit of learning science from these masters who were from the first half of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And I learned very well. And shortly after I had finished my postdoctoral work and had a position at the University of California at San Diego, I realized something important. If you were to go halfway to the center of the Earth, you'd come to a core that is a molten iron alloy. And at the center of Earth, there's a solid object, slightly smaller than the moon and about 3 times as massive, called the inner core. And I realized that for 40 years, the geoscience community had the wrong idea, that there was another possible explanation. And when I explained this to Harold Urey, I took the manuscript I had written and took it to Harold Urey and watched his expression as he just lighted up. Oh, yes, yes. And then he offered to communicate that to the proceedings of the Royal Society of London, where it was reviewed and it was published. Well, while I was waiting for it to be published, I sent a copy to Inga Lehman, the lady who had discovered the inner core of the Earth. And I got the most complimentary letter back from her, praising my logic. She had discovered the inner core by logic. So this was all very nice. And I thought, while I was waiting for the paper to be published, I thought, well, gosh, there'll be discussion and the debate, as there should be. And probably the people with the powerful laboratories will take the idea and run with it and leave me in the dust. That didn't happen. It was as if I had never published the paper at all. And my grants then, when they came up for renewal, they were not renewed for no good reason. I was excommunicated. And I realized at that point that I had crossed a line. The science community had already become twisted, perverted, to adopt a consensus mentality that if you don't challenge it, or if you do challenge it, you'll pay for it.
Yes.
And so that was a revelation to me. And it also set me free, because from then on, I could do research, as I sponsored it myself, that I didn't have to do anything but good research and do truthful research. Now, the geoscience community is still plugging away at these 1940s ideas, trying to solve the composition of the inside of the Earth. They won't refer to the work that I do. because the community has become corrupted. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is not to brag or to toot my own horn, but to show you that the science community, it has long been corrupted, and they are very much a part of what is harmful, damaging to humans, to our planet, to all the creatures of this earth. I mean, there are some honest scientists, but they don't dare speak out, or they will be cut off at the knees. It's career suicide.
I know exactly what you mean, Marvin, because I see exactly the same thing in the medical community. Cancer can be cured, but like your inner core of the earth, it's a no-no.
Well, this is shameful behavior.
It is.
I mean, science is about learning about the true nature of the earth, the universe, and the creatures of our planet, and so forth. And it's the purpose of science is to improve the knowledge, to find out what is wrong with current thinking, and correct it, and move forward and improve knowledge. And so this is totally anti-science, what is being done. And worse, it's being done at taxpayer expense. Mm-hmm. I'm a taxpayer, and I'm supporting this nonsense.
Yeah.
But the real tragedy is that the scientists themselves have been used to advance an agenda that is an inhumane agenda. Yeah. And that is, in my view, wholly unacceptable.
I concur totally. Yes. And as I said, I recognize it. And since in two different disciplines, it's the same truth, it must be the truth, what you're saying.
And it's probably also true well, I know it's true in astrophysics, because I've published a few papers relating to astrophysics, such as the thermonuclear ignition of stars, and why the galaxies have the shapes that they have. And the astrophysics community tried to bury those.
Again, yeah.
This is absurd. But it's what people study the atmosphere. There are a lot of scientists that make measurements, take samples of the atmosphere, study it, but they simply do not acknowledge what is going on right before our eyes. You don't even have to go outside. You turn on the television to a program over the last few years, and you'll see in the background the trails that the jets are laying in the sky. And there's something incredibly dishonest about these people. So when it started happening where I live on a near daily basis, that's when I decided I would apply my science background and my understanding of how to make discoveries to figure out what it is that they are spraying. And what it is that they are spraying is horrible.
It is, yes. Here in the Netherlands, where I live, the first thing I see in the morning when I open a curtain above my stairs, I see a large part of the sky, and most days it's already with stripes. And the stripes are being sort of advertised everywhere, because if you look at a Volkswagen advertisement,
I've seen that.
It has stripes. They are changing a bridge here, building a bigger one. And there was an artist impression of the new situation, complete with exactly these airstripes. It's impossible. And I wrote a letter about that to the government, and I never got an answer, of course.
Well, here's the thing that, well, let me jump ahead and tell your audience just what it is that they are spraying.
Yes, please.
There's very good scientific evidence from several lines of investigations that what they're spraying is something called coal fly ash. When coal is burned, say in utilities that produce electricity, the heavy ash settles and the very fine ash goes up the smokestack. Except in Western countries, now it's required to be trapped electrostatically because it's toxic. It's a toxic nightmare. But this is the stuff that they're spraying. And it doesn't stay in the air. Where they're spraying is in the lower atmosphere, in the troposphere, which is convective. In other words, it turns over and over and over. So those particles that are still suspended, you breathe them. That's inevitable. The fine ones, you don't even have to breathe them. They can go through your eyes, through your skin. This is terrible stuff.
Because you can say that it's nanoparticles?
Nanoparticles, yes. And when the stuff lands on the ground, it's dark gray color and it absorbs sunlight. And so it adds to global warming. That's not all it does. When it's sprayed into the air where clouds form, which is where they spray it, it retards the fall of rain. The pollutant matter just blocks the little droplets of water from coalescing and getting big enough, heavy enough to fall to earth. That's one thing. Then what it also does is it heats the atmosphere. Still another thing, like clouds, it blocks heat leaving the earth. So these are all things that cause global warming, which then brings up the question, why would so many governments somebody must have told all of the governments something, the government leaders, and they believed it without question. Because if they had told them the truth and told them about the toxic nature of coal fly ash, only an insane person would have agreed to allow that. I sometimes wonder what is being told. My guess is, and I don't know this, but I guess that what governments are being told, and this may come through some of the UN documents, that the earth is warming due to fossil fuel, and we have to do something about it. We have to prevent global warming. But people are too ignorant to deal with it, so we'll do it privately and quietly. Well, this is the biggest scam in the world, because what they're doing is causing global warming, and they're blaming it on the CO2 that you and I breathe out, and the fossil fuel. And so the more they act to prevent global warming by spraying, the more it heats up the earth. It causes disasters. The clouds can, when they can't rain naturally because of all the pollution matter, but eventually they become so saturated they have to. And then you get downpours and you get storms. This is an assault on planet Earth and all of its inhabitants.
Yes. What I heard people say, and not ignorant people, I must say, is that when Fukushima happened, they made a barrier so that the rain could not fall on California, because then the whole radiation of Fukushima would have dumped on California.
Well, the problem with that logic is that they're spraying everywhere, not just in California. They're
No,
spraying
true. Yeah.
spraying us like bugs here in California, but they're spraying throughout the U.S., especially in Florida, and they're spraying all over Europe and in both Eastern Europe and Western Europe. They're spraying in Australia. I think they're also spraying in Russia. I've actually seen. I was in India in November, and the smog cleared up enough one day that I could see the trails being laid in India.
Oh, wow.
This is terrible because India lives in a state of a very, very fragile existence with nature. I mean, you know, the floods in Bangladesh that kill thousands of people. I mean, this is under normal conditions. The last thing that the people in India need is to have somebody messing with global climate. This is terrible.
Yeah, it's awful. And also things like drought that has been happening to California, so that they had to take out many almond orchards.
Oh, yes.
It's a disaster. It's really awful.
Well, I keep wondering, why would somebody do that? And there are certain things, possibility. I'm sure there are a lot of agendas. One agenda is there are people that stand to make vast fortunes, including the people who are involved in the spraying.
Yes.
But they're people that hate freedom, that hate America because we have freedom. And they probably hate the Europeans as well because you're getting sprayed.
Yeah.
There's the idea that they want to create such havoc, blame it on human fossil fuel use, that the UN will be empowered to start controlling everything. And that's probably the number one agenda. A secondary agenda is that melting the Arctic and the Antarctic to get at oil and the natural resources that are there.
Yes, yeah. And population reduction, I would say.
There are people who would like to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
We live in a time of monsters, but what we've lost as a people, we've lost our sense of humanity, or many of us have. I don't think you have. I certainly wouldn't admit to that. But many people, they just are oblivious to what is happening. And part of it is because they are being deceived in this country, certainly by the CIA, by the news media.
Yeah.
They're
news media.
Well, which is probably pretty much run by a few people, and probably there's somebody from the CIA in each one of the major outlets. I've heard rumors to that effect. Mm-hmm. Irrespective, I mean, this is an inhumanity. There's never been anything of the scale of this on our planet. I mean, this is worse than war, because it's a war on everybody.
Yes, that's what it is. And there are still so many people who are ignorant of what is happening, because I always ask people, did you see these trails in the sky? Huh? Trails? What? And then they have no clue. And even when I gave my presentation in this hearing of the EU Parliament in Brussels in 2013, there was a member of the European Parliament who had no clue about these trails. And he was really, when I said, yes, and it concerns your grandchildren also. And then he woke up, sort of. I could hear the coin drop.
Well, the thing that, going back to the scientific community The scientific community has ignored this. They even the people that study the atmosphere, they don't mention the spraying. Some of them talk about geoengineering as if it's some future thing that we might have to do.
Yeah.
And now a lot of meetings around the world with the idea of providing a basis for governance for a time when we might have to prevent global warming by geoengineering the stratosphere way up high. But that's all a sham. That's all a sham. What they'd like to do is to make legal what is absolutely illegal and horrific that is going on right now. And our political leaders are shameful. I mean, they are shameful to prevent that.
Yeah, well, I buy vitamin C from a company in China, 25 kilos at the time. And I told that to somebody, and he tried to buy also 25 kilos of Chinese vitamin C, sodium ascorbate. And the price had gone up 3 times in the meantime. So I wrote an email to the company in China, what is going on? And then they told me in their strange sort of English, they told me that the Olympics were there and that all the factories had to stop working because the weather was being manipulated to have sunshine on the Olympics.
Yes, well, they are honest. What can you say?
Yes, they were honest. And I know that almost every country has its own corporation that is involved in weather manipulation. I prefer to call it manipulation instead of modification because they manipulate. That's more honest, I think, to say it like that.
Well, I can't imagine why leaders would agree to this unless they were totally deceived, which means perhaps the best way to solve this problem is to undeceive the leadership.
Yeah.
Because no one was admitting to what was being sprayed. And there was, and so obviously, you see trails. Well, if you don't know what they are, maybe you don't worry about them. But I got the evidence and published it. And the disinformation people came after me big time. They tried to get the first paper retracted with a bunch of lies. The editor was a man of integrity, sent me the verbatim copy, asked me to respond in writing, and his plan was to publish both the complaints and my response. But those people wouldn't allow it to be published.
Cowards.
Okay? Well, they managed successfully. They brought more people in and were more aggressive. They managed to cause 2 public health papers of mine that were peer-reviewed and published to be retracted by the journals, with the journals never showing me the comments that were made and never allowing me to respond. Now, this is serious. One of the journals, I wrote a letter to the ambassador to the U.S. From Switzerland to make a criminal complaint about that. And I hadn't heard from him, so I then wrote the president. And I haven't heard back from her yet. These people will ultimately know that there's something very, very bad wrong, and they're allowing their own citizens to be poisoned, including themselves, their own family.
Exactly, and their own grandchildren, as I said, in Brussels.
Well, you know, these people, they have their heads in some very dark place.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Where the sun don't shine.
I wasn't going to say it quite as directly, but yes, exactly. And there's something really sick about this. Only one paper in something like 15,000 that's been published is retracted. And only then, because it's usually a fraudulent paper, or somebody has taken one that's already been published and republished.
Plagiarized it.
So if you imagine, I mean, I have a reasonably substantial background of publishing in world-class journals. And so if you imagine 2 of my papers have already been retracted, these are public health papers. Now, there's something really wrong. And this, make no mistake, this is an activity that is centered in the U.S. It provides a new dimension to the term ugly American. But I'm sure that there are other foreign people involved in this. But I mean, this is awful. It's, you know that they're spraying something very, very bad if they're working so hard to get the public health warnings, keep them out of the literature. Now, I have had some papers published. I have another major paper that is, right now, it's pending a decision. It was an interesting situation because one of the reviewers was really, really good, the kind you dream about. One of the other reviewers was a disinformation person. And
interesting as well.
And so so I dealt with both sides of this. So we'll see what the journal does. But this is a and that was just a happenstance. I'm sure that the editor didn't intend for that, but he sent it to somebody that was connected with the disinformation team, and and the evidence is that one of the people who was making the remarks isn't even a scientist, but his job is just to people's reputations and deceive them.
To reshield,
The websites, you know, that where they do this too.
Yeah.
So anyway,
talking about the coal fly ash, the tiny particles of coal burning, is that like fluoride, a substance that they need to get rid of also, and that this is like fluoride they put in our drinking water? They put the coal fly ash into the air in the
well, it's almost for the people who do this, it must seem like magic, because to take rock and to pulverize it to micron and submicron size costs a fortune. And here's something that is a waste product that is just in the right size range, or if you want to, you with just a very simple cyclone separator, you can even select out a finer grain size. And so this is like magic for those people, provided they have no conscience, no sense of humanity. They don't care what happens. But you know, the military has had that as a track record. During the 50s and 60s, they detonated more than 100 above ground nuclear tests in the US. And they lied to people about the dangers. They even their own people who were exposed to radiation, they told them they received less radiation than they had. They conducted experiments on, well, like they gave pregnant women, what they said was vitamins, when what it was really was radioactive iodine, or was it iron, one or the other. and they injected newborn babies with radioactive stuff. I mean, these people have no. I mean, this is
Yeah.
evil with a capital E.
Yes, I know. And I also know that many illegal tests, procedures have been done to civilians who had no informed consent. They were ignorant of what was going on. And that has happened time and time again. And the most famous example of that is the Tuskegee Project, where they infected 400 black men with syphilis and then watched what was going to happen to these people.
Yes, they did not do anything to cure them.
I mean, you only can do a thing like that when you don't have a conscience, period.
Well, this is one of the I think the secrecy is what is the underlying facilitator. If people had to be upright and sign and make public everything they did, they would be very hesitant to do experiments like that. But wherever there's secrecy, like I mean, even with something innocent like Wikipedia, a lot of people, attack my Wikipedia page, and they do it with a screen name, no accountability.
Oh yeah.
So this is terrible. But
yes, I don't know why that is. I'm thinking about what I wrote a book about, the HPV vaccination, the so-called vaccines against cervical cancer, which is total nonsense. And it has maimed and killed so many beautiful young girls that it's not funny. And it's the same unaccountability, it's the same not having a conscience sort of people who do that. And in vaccination arena, it is a lot of money going on. So that is one of the things that makes them go round and round doing it again.
Well, let me give you cause for optimism. Everyone expected Hillary Clinton to be elected.
Yeah.
I thank the Lord she was not.
I agree.
Instead, Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump has a 10-year-old son who has autism.
He has been damaged. Yes.
And there's good reason to believe that he will do a lot to rein in the insanity that is rampant.
Yeah, although he is being boxed in by a lot of state Zionism. But anyway, I think when he's on the loose in a press conference, then we see the old Donald Trump again. Well,
it'll be interesting to see. I have no doubt that there will be positive changes.
Yeah.
The EPA, for example, that has been, it reminds.
The American Psychiatric Association, you mean?
Well, it reminds me of Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury's story that was made into a movie. It's about the future. It's about a fire department, but the fire department had devolved from an organization that put out fires to an organization that went around burning books. And the EPA has sort of devolved in that similar manner.
Oh, the EPA. Yeah.
They've become an agency, instead of protecting us from pollution, helping to cause pollution.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But there's one thing that I think that is really, really important to discuss, and especially important to the people in the Low Country. And that has to do with something that happened a year ago. May I describe this?
Yes, please do.
I found, or actually somebody sent me a news item last February, and it was about a place in Michigan, the state of Michigan, a little place called Harrison Township, where something dropped from a plane, little droplets of material spread over 7 houses and cars. And the fire chief described it as ashy and oily. And when I saw that, I thought, hey, you know, this may be something connected with geoengineering. And so I started making inquiries. And fortunately, I found the phone number of one of the citizens that had landed on his property, and he had been mentioned in the news. And so I called him, and he was very glad to provide some samples of the material, because he thought that they had not done a good job of finding out what it is. They had suggested it was a flight of birds flying over that had suddenly let go. And so he sent me samples, and I had them analyzed in a couple of different ways using, I think, 3 different laboratories. And I also made contact with the Department of Environmental Quality of Michigan, the people who had sampled the material. And I told them they needed to make another test, which they did do, and they shared the results with me. And this was not from a flight of birds. What it was an artificial substance. An artificial Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't expecting that. It was an artificial substance made to look like and behave like a natural substance that is found sometimes in the Arctic and Antarctic. That it's debris that gets other stuff in it, and it gets black, and it absorbs sunlight, and it melts its way into a glacier. Well, this material was made from leaf debris, seed husks, things like that, probably held together with oil. My sample was too late to really test for the oil. But it had, in addition, it had coal fly ash, which is dark gray in color, and it had salt in it. And it was distributed. You can see from this picture, the little spots, how it's all distributed throughout. Well, to me, that looked just like what is observed on melting glaciers, where they see glaciers with holes. They're called cryoconite holes, the cryoconite being the material. Mm-hmm. And this is an artificial material, and you can see it's the aircraft was set up to distribute this small amounts of this stuff over wide areas. Apparently, the pilot or the person in control of the apparatus switched it on for just a moment, and left that signature. But that's all it took. I mean, this was like a great detective story.
Yeah.
Things kept coming out, and finally, when I had the data in hand and I knew about the cryoconite holes and observed in Arctic glaciers, it becomes very evident that this was a deliberate activity to melt glacial ice. Well, this is consistent with the aerial spraying. The aerial spraying heats the atmosphere. It causes global warming. This cryoconite melts ice, causes global warming. Now, the people who are most affected are the people in your country.
Yes.
Oh, country. I mean, you know, the Netherlanders have been fighting the ocean, the sea, for I don't know how long, more than 100
Hundreds of years. Yes.
A long time.
Yeah.
And the last thing they need is for the sea levels to rise and the ocean currents and the storms to intensify and create havoc. This should be, people should tell their politicians about this. I mean, you have an election, I think, coming up, next month?
Yeah.
Every one of those politicians should know about this, because that has direct bearing. I mean, people may believe the nonsense that the UN is saying about we're trying to prevent global warming and that sort of fantasy, but this is reality. And that material that fell in Michigan, that was a smoking gun. I mean, this is the evidence. This wasn't something to spray in the atmosphere. This was something to sprinkle down to melt glacial ice, and as well poison with the coal fly ash, whatever it touches too. But this is why people in your country really need to get on to their leaders, because I think if one country would say, whoa, we're not going to allow this to happen, and be upright and honest about what they were told and who told them and what they were told to do, I think that it would be like the old phrase domino effect, where others would follow suit.
That could be. And yes, I personally live below sea level. So yes, it is absolutely important to tell our politicians. I put a sign on Facebook for people to get all the snail mail addresses and the email addresses of these politicians, and I'm going to see to it that many people will send these reports to them, your articles.
Well, thank you. That's really, really important. I mean, I think people, nobody has the right to go and melt the Arctic and create havoc.
No.
It would create havoc globally, and some places it would be worse than others, and certainly the Netherlands is one.
Yes.
A country like India, whose vast population that depends on a very delicate balance, there's another one. So that's one of the reasons I'm very, very delighted that we have had a chance to talk.
Yeah, and the global weather is a process with cycles. We have paintings that people were ice skating on the Thames River in London.
Yes.
I have once seen that a large river in the Netherlands was frozen over, so they could hack a path through so cars could drive over to the other side. It was 1 year, I think it was 1963 or something. But it is a cyclic thing. So global warming is also part of those cycles.
Cycle, yes. And there's another paper, if I may mention.
Yeah, go ahead.
A long time ago, journals always required, at least since the Second World War, that the editors send papers out for review by other people, usually about 3 reviewers. But as the science community became corrupted, the journals allowed editors to reject papers with just a few words that didn't have to be true, just a few negative words. And this has become what all of the major journals are doing this, which all it takes is, I mean, it's hard to find an editor in a major journal that will send a paper out for reviews to people, and I'm not talking about to people he knows would give a negative review, but to be honest, there was a new journal started by Elsevier.
Uh-huh.
They offered free open access publishing to get started. So I submitted a review paper, a very serious review paper about the georeactor, the nuclear reactor at the center of the Earth that has come out of my work. And this was basically for a review of about 10 years of the progress that was made. Well, the editor was a professor of geology at Oxford University. Mm-hmm. So what did he do? He wrote a few negative remarks and rejected the paper.
Just like that.
Just like that. And this is the quality. And so it does, and so this is one of the problems that we're facing, is that this whole community has been corrupted. So I've what I was about to tell you, I have a paper that I submitted to at least 6 different journals: Proceedings of the Royal Society of London, Transactions of the Edinburgh, Royal Society of Edinburgh. I submitted it to a Japanese journal, a Russian journal, I forget the others, a few more, but they all rejected it without review. And it's based upon evidence that the Earth's heat coming out of the Earth is increasing. And of course that impacts the whole IPCC, that assumes that everything is constant for their models. And so it's now I finally found a journal that's honest, that'll send it out for reviews. But this is, you're right. The Earth changes. Its climate, the energy that comes out of it, the dynamics. This is a variable process. And so what scientists should do is they should learn to make circumstances happen that we can adapt ourselves to such changes. Mm-hmm. Not to try to change the planet. I mean, that's...
No. Improve on nature. Ha.
That's folly for the fools.
Yes.
I don't know whether you noticed on my website that, did you know about the music videos?
I saw them, but I haven't looked at them. And let's mention your website. That is www. 3 times a W. It's unpronounceable, I think. Yes. And then nuclearplanet.com. Nuclearplanet.com.
Well, I wrote a series of the words to some music that was very classic music. And I posted so far, I think maybe 4 of them. One was, and this is all scientifically correct, that pertains to the spraying. Mm-hmm. One is was to America Once the Beautiful. Another one was the Battle Hymn of the Republic. There was a couple of more, but one of them that you would find interesting, being European, was music that was to the Ode to Joy, which is the European anthem, but it's with words to that. And it's sung in 2 different ways. One is sung by an American with a beautiful voice. Another one that's linked is sung by a lady named Lua Quiteria, I think I'm pronouncing that right, who happens to be a pediatric physician, who has a fantastic performance, and her son did the musical backup. And I think you'll appreciate those, because they tell a nice story, and in ways that you can understand the science.
Okay, well, I will look them up and listen to.
There are a couple of them that aren't yet posted yet, but there will be. But this is, we try to do what we can to reach out to people.
Yes, anything goes to get their attention.
Well, yeah. I'm not sure how you can really get their attention. I mean,
it's hard because, people, there is a lot of cognitive dissonance. And the point is that what you are saying in your research, even scientists closed all the doors to it. So, yeah.
Well, it's the scientific community doesn't cite my work very rarely. And the same thing, they shut the door.
Yeah.
And of course, in this instance, this is imperiling the health of people. It's imperiling the health of our planet.
It is.
And so this we need to do something about. I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful that you lowlanders will be able to get through, because this is like a smoking gun. I mean, this is stuff that was dripped, that was made to have the same effect as the naturally occurring cryoconite. And I don't know how much of what people see as naturally occurring really was naturally occurring.
Yeah.
You know, they may be seeing a lot of stuff that was spread, not sprayed, but spread. Yeah. Like in that photograph you showed of the.
Yeah. Well, what worries me is that when I look at the younger generations, I see that the educational system is a scream these days. I mean, the moment they introduced the multiple choice stuff, people stopped learning to think for themselves.
Well, I'm hopeful, again, that we're going to, I mean, we've been trapped by the public school system in America.
Yeah.
And you have to be fairly well off to send your children to a private school.
Yes.
I'm hoping that with the new administration that there'll be big changes there.
I hope so too. Yes. Yeah. I really hope that Charlotte Iserbyt gets a chance to help people understand.
And I think this is I suspect this is maybe the leading edge of what will probably happen throughout Europe if this is successful, that people who want to separate themselves, for example, from the European Union.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
European Union has not been responsive. So maybe these are good positive signs for the future.
Well, with the hearing that I was part of in the European Parliament in 2013, the conclusion of that day was that we were now allowed to bring a petition to the European Parliament, an official petition. And then I thought, geez, what did we do now, just now? We told the story, get into action, come on.
But then the petition was ignored or unsuccessful or something.
Yeah, it's going nowhere. It really is going nowhere. And I was walking around in that building in Brussels and I thought, oh, geez, what an awful energy is here. Ugh.
Well, I think that we now must do something, because I know that this material, the paper that I'm hoping will be published in the next few weeks, it's I co-authored with a physician who is a public health official in the state of Florida.
Yeah, Mark Whiteside. Yeah.
Yes. And it's about the increased risk from the spraying of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and lung cancer. I mean, this is some serious stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
This is, in a
I
sense,
will put it up
this
for
is
people to see.
this is in a sense a slow pandemic. It's something that will take years before the real badness happens. Okay, this is one that was just published, but we have a much bigger paper that has been reviewed, and we're hoping the decision will be to publish it. It'll say even a lot more. But yes, this is Mark Whiteside, and he's very much concerned about. He's seeing the trees dying in Florida. This is terrible what's happening.
Yeah.
Now, there are dark sides to this whole thing too. When you spray this material in the air, it retards the fall of rain. One of my papers was published by Agravita Agricultural Journal.
Oh yeah.
And if you have that handy,
Yes, I have that somewhere. I can't find it.
It has a picture of a satellite view of the Republic of Cyprus, just totally covered with trails.
Yeah, I'll have a, yeah, I remember. I saw that one. Let me see. Let me find it. I need to know the exact title to. Adverse agricultural. Yeah.
That's one.
Okay, let me see. Yeah, I have it here. And now it's opening, and now it's...
There's a dark side to this, because the military or the CIA or whoever decides to do that can spray this material over a region, retard the fall of rain, cause droughts, which leads to animal death, starvation, agricultural collapse. Keep scrolling if you would.
Yes, yeah. I was showing. This is the cypress.
There's the cypress.
Yeah.
And you see trails all over there, but not really in the surrounding areas. And the people in Cyprus have asked their government for investigation. And of course, their government doesn't do much of anything.
No.
Of course. Now, if you scroll up one little bit to the picture before that, other way.
Oh, yeah, here.
No, the picture right there. See if you can get those in there. The reason I wanted to show you this, these were all taken on days that would have been just totally blue skies in San Diego without any clouds. See, it used to be that many of our days, there were no clouds whatsoever, natural clouds in the sky. We had beautiful blue skies.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the different sprayings, but as you look toward the bottom, you see that as the sky becomes almost opaque, overcast.
Yep.
With trails. This isn't, and it gives a brownish cast, which is that this is not a natural stuff. This is the coal fly ash. This is what they do, and so when they are just causing a drought in California. They probably have caused droughts elsewhere. I think the Iranians have complained that the southern part of Iran has suffered as a result. It makes you wonder whether the problems in Syria, which began with a drought and livestock loss, whether that was natural or artificially caused.
Yes, yeah, you start to doubt everything now because of what is happening, what you can see that is artificial. Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that things will be changing, but I'm really, really hopeful that people in your country will take heart to this latest paper, because that's like I said, it's a smoking gun. It's evidence that there is, in fact, somebody spent a lot of money to develop the technology, the means of transport to melt glacial ice. And it happened that somebody pushed the wrong button for just a moment.
Yeah, that's happening sometimes.
Let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah. But in the Antarctic is a lot going on. You mentioned oil and other stuff that can be mined and make money out of, but also it seems that the Germans in World War II had a secret grotto, so to speak, where they were experimenting with flying saucers and that sort of stuff, because there were scientists like Victor Schauberger who was already developing things like that.
That would not surprise me. I've heard rumors to that effect.
Yeah.
And of course, the Antarctic isn't all that far from Argentina, which was a favorite
Exactly. Hangout. Yeah, Hitler's hangout. Yeah. Oh, there is so much that we are being told, which is a total fabrication, has nothing to do with reality. And well,
what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
What I'm hoping, there's one thing that we talked about, the music videos. The one thing I haven't posted anywhere is I wrote new words for Ave Maria.
Okay.
And the lady, Kate Magdalena Willens, sang it beautifully. And that became the part of a video address that I made to Pope Francis. And it was sent to the Vatican by Josefina, along with some documents.
Oh, with Josefina, yeah.
And so I'm hopeful that that we'll get some response. I think that the Vatican, here's what happened. 500 years ago, the Catholic Church went against science, and they suffered. I mean, they suffered a huge loss of prestige because they were wrong about the Earth being at the center of the universe. And I've noticed over the last 40 years that the Catholic Church has tried to embrace science. And so what this video was about, I began by saying something like, all human institutions, from time to time, all human institutions become corrupted. So it is now with Earth scientists. And I explained why. And so I'm hopeful that the Vatican will start looking very carefully at what their scientists are just rubber stamping like scientists everywhere else are doing. And because they should be standing up for Christian humanitarian values, not being part of this geoengineering nonsense.
Yeah, but I wonder whether a Jesuit will do that.
You wonder what?
Whether a Jesuit will do that, stand up for Christians.
Jesuits, in my experience, are, number one, extremely well educated, and think a whole lot. They don't just accept. They reason and think. So I think there's a good chance. Now I'm going to make another. I hope this next paper gets published, because when that does, which is a very big medical paper about lung cancer, chronic pulmonary disease, I'm going to make another appeal to the Pope with the evidence of the material dropping in Michigan that is evidence of activity to melt glaciers, and also more detail about the the medical health effects of what's going on.
Yeah.
Because I know it's, you think of the enormous inertia of the Catholic Church, but if it could be turned just a little bit, it would it would be.
Yeah, they certainly have the logistics to create a total change. Yes.
Well, and I'm from what I've read and seen on television, I'm rather impressed with the current Pope. He seems to be out of the ordinary, shall we say. Just he did a lot in Argentina during very difficult times. And so it remains to be seen, but I'm hopeful. Because we have to, and the next thing I'm hopeful is that your people will all of a sudden see that you are at the real disadvantage of anybody from this. Not only are you getting poisoned in your bodies and your farmlands and your creatures that live there, but you will be subjected to increasing dangers from an ocean that's increasing in size and turbulence and ferocity.
Yes.
Because of this geoengineering. So it's time to just simply say stop. And maybe there's a Donald Trump amongst your politicians.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I haven't seen him yet, but
well, we can hope. But
maybe they should invite me, maybe.
Well, that would
that would help, because I cannot lie. I don't know how to. Everybody would see immediately.
Well, yeah, you would have trouble. I'd have the same problem. You see, science, real science, is all about truth.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
logic.
And logic.
Absolutely logic.
And you can't, if you lie about something, deceive about something in science, you end up hurting a lot of people preventing them from making further advances and preventing yourself. So I have to be, as a scientist, I have to be extremely honest. And and so this is what we share in common. And I think probably many of the activists are in the same small group of people.
Yeah, I guess.
It's just, well, you just, you can't deceive people and you can't deceive yourself.
No, that is it. Yes, I have an experience in my life where I came to a moment that I had the choice to not be honest. And I immediately decided, no, I'm going to be totally straight, totally honest, because I don't want to lose my integrity. So I know that moment very well, and that is why I can see it immediately with someone else who goes.
Yes, well, this was the same kind of moment I had back in 1979, 1980, when I was excommunicated. I mean, I could have turned around and done menial projects and not been honest about them and probably get nice grants from the government and so forth.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do that.
No.
I mean, I'd rather do science part-time, and I made more discoveries just in a part-time way than most people have with full-time. Because when you're honest about something, you see something new and you start to investigate it, and it leads you to something else and to something else. And so I refer to this as a logical progression of understanding.
Yes, I understand completely.
I'm sure you understand it completely.
Yeah.
And this is so true in science, and this is not the way that the typical government-funded scientists work. They pick some little project to work on, and they try to make it fit into the consensus mentality. It doesn't lead them anywhere. and they don't realize that they are just being like trapped in a blind alley. They can't.
That's what I call it always. Yes, and I see that doctors are trapped in a blind alley. They should turn 180 degrees around, make a U-turn, in other words,
Yes.
and find the truth.
That is true, and so there's this commonality, and I suspect that the commonality really overlaps into many fields.
Yes, it does.
Can you imagine if the United States government under Donald Trump decided that from here on out, everyone will tell the truth and not lie, and anybody that lies would be, excommunicated or something. Well, the press would fold up.
yeah, the fake news people. Go.
They couldn't survive. But honestly, if a government is doing something with respect to other governments, it stands to that if what they're doing is the right thing to be doing, then truth should not hurt them at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this is fun because we're in the same choir, I think.
Yes, we are. And I would add that what gives me the most hope regarding President Trump is that I have heard his reversals, meaning there is something like reverse speech, and that is the language of the subconscious. And the subconscious of a person cannot lie. And when you listen to the reversals of Hillary Clinton and of other people, it is amusing sometimes. Her own subconscious gets tired of her lying. And the point with Donald Trump is, sorry, go ahead.
All I was about to say is Hillary's subconscious must be overworked big time.
Yeah, I think so. But the beauty with Donald Trump is that he is totally congruent in his forward speech and in his reversals. And John David Oates, the man of reversespeech.com, has been working at this for 30 years now. And he is working now on the press conference that President Trump gave the other day. Mm-hmm. And there are very interesting reversals in it. And he will be on Monday again to give a follow-up of the rest of the conference. But this reverse speech is amazing, really. So I am hopeful, but the point being, what makes it difficult is that he is being fenced in by deep state Zionists, and that is worrisome. So
it is worrisome. I think he's clever enough that he's got very powerful people, well-connected people.
Yeah,
and you have to be able to deal with something like that.
Yes, absolutely.
It'll be interesting to see. I hope that I just hope that he's able to continue with the momentum that he started.
Yeah, me too. And with the Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, with the vaccination stuff and that sort of thing. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, well, that was an astute selection for that position.
Yeah, it's a pity that Kennedy only speaks about mercury, because every vaccine can maim or kill no matter what is in it. It is a witch's brew of toxicity anyway. A lot of aluminum also.
And the shame, of course, is that the U.S. Congress absolved drug companies from any liability. I'd like to see that changed.
Yeah, immediate. That should be, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
But then that is the parallels in my playground, the vaccination arena, and your playground, science of air crap, as I call it sometimes, the
yes.
trail in the sky, and all the other things that you discovered.
It's just different facets of the same type of evil.
Yes.
Where greed and lust for power and whatever supersedes anything that is of a humanitarian nature.
Yes.
Now, I look at the relative levels of this in terms of Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, infamous for crimes against humanity, but he never sprayed poison over much of the world's population.
Exactly.
Leaders need to think about that. How is it they can close their eyes? Well,
it's the same thing that people never commented on the looting that Hillary Clinton has done with her foundation, and the one conversation that was stealthily recorded of Donald Trump having some locker room talk about a woman. So people,
yes,
out of proportion, always.
Well, there's a really deep-seated movement that's happened during our lifetime, where there's an entrenchment of people, especially in America, that hate America, that want to have a global, and that,
yeah,
hard to believe. And we've always welcomed people who've had problems in their own countries. We've tried to, we did help during World War II. There was, but yet people want to destroy that, and they have to destroy it if they want a world government.
Yes.
But my concern about a world government is, if you don't like it, where can you go?
Yeah, right.
It's rather like the spraying. If you're unhappy that you're being sprayed, where could you move where you are not being sprayed?
No, there's no way to flee it.
And a lot of people have asked me that question. And there's no way to flee because it is like a one world activity.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I look at flightradar24.com because when I see planes laying a trail, I want to know who does it. And it's everybody. It's commercial airliners. It is the cheap ones, and it's everywhere. They're all doing it. And sometimes it's unmarked planes. Not that I personally have seen those, but I've heard that from other people. And I know that there are pilots who do just that, laying trails.
I don't, how is it that governments got twisted this way? This is one of the great mysteries. Is it one of those things like the Paris Accords that came out? Is it one of those things from several years ago that turned governments into doing these? Were there secret parts to it where governments agree to allow this and to? I don't know. I just don't know how. I mean, look, you remember? Well, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the 1950s and the movies. But there was a time.
I was young then.
there was a time when science fiction movies were really big,
Mm-hmm.
and if you had tried to make a movie with the idea that an alien had somehow controlled all of the governments to get them to spray their population, no one would believe it. I mean, it wouldn't even make it in the fantasy realm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here it is, reality.
And now it is, yeah.
So what else can we do is the question.
Yeah, well, I think it's a bottom-up thing. The people have to get aware of what's going on and then make a lot of noise so that the politicians know that won't get any votes from these people if they don't start acting up against chemtrails.
That is so difficult though, because the media is in the tank, and you have the disinformation people spreading lies.
Yeah.
Even the U.S. Air Force produced a document in 2006 that said that there's no such thing, and that it's just harmless ice crystals. You know?
Yeah, also I have a document somewhere in a presentation where the word chemtrail is being used in an official paper. I think it was from the Air Force, but that
is the one. I wasn't going to say the word.
No, yeah. I
no such thing as chemtrails.
No.
Go on to talk about contrails being ice crystals, harmless ice crystals. Mm-hmm. That's the ploy. That's the lie.
Yeah. Well, I remember lying on my back in the grass during summertime, looking at the beautiful blue sky and seeing that one plane with this little short tail that stayed the same.
Yes.
I remember that very well. So when these trails appeared and stayed and became wider, and after a couple of hours there was no more sunshine,
yes,
I knew something was going on.
Well, this is what I was noticing, and I just I tried to call the county health department.
Yeah.
I talked to the young lady at the switchboard, and she said, well, you have to tell me what it is so I can direct you to the right person. And I told her, and she says, oh, they're not real. They're imaginary.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, do you realize that there now is a whole generation of people who, in the Netherlands, we got the euro, I think around 2000 or something, I don't remember. Before we had guilders, other coins.
Yes.
There are children today, young people today, who have never seen a guilder and who have never seen an untarnished blue sky.
That is sad.
And to explain to these kids who have no frame of reference for what we mean,
yes,
you talk gibberish when you try to explain.
Well, this is the total amount of control in schools. They beat them into the idea into their heads that the planet is warming. There's global warming.
Yeah.
And their NASA has come out with games like Count the Contrails, games for children.
Yeah.
This is horrific.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But I think what you're suggesting about from the bottom up, I look at it at a slightly different level.
Oh, please.
I think it's difficult to work from the bottom up because you've got the no help from the media. You've got the schools that have not been honest with the children. It's hard. I'm not trying to discourage you. I mean, everybody should be doing that. But I'm also thinking that what we need is a few instances of going to the highest people with very real problems that their politicians need to address. And in the case of your country, it's the melting of Arctic ice.
Mm-hmm.
And they should be aware of it, and more people should be asking the politicians and working from the top in that sense.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do that with the Swiss government because the journal that retracted the last paper was a Swiss journal. The CEO of the company is on the faculty of, I can't pronounce it, Ecotech, well, it's a Swiss technical university.
Probably a German name. Yeah.
Well, it's a probably a French name, but I don't.
Oh, French. Oh, yeah, could be also.
Something or other. Anyway, I'm terrible with especially French words. Beautiful language, and some of the nicest people, but it's just it's frustrating.
It's a beautiful language. Yeah.
But I'm going to work hard to bring to that woman's attention that she is allowing the poisoning of her own people. Yeah. And she's also involving the Swiss in, as you know, Swiss have a long tradition of neutrality, but they are, by virtue of what they're allowing, they are becoming party to a military operation.
Yes.
And so I'm going to try to pursue that line of approach in the hopes that this woman will maybe reflect and think and quit acting like a robot.
Yeah. Kick into gear.
That's well, you know, the thing that here's my feeling. I think that this is the people that really need to be doing something, and you're certainly one, and Josefina and some others I know of. See, this is really a problem that women should deal with. I mean, throughout nature, I mean, women are the protectors of life. I
Absolutely.
mean, you try to harm a child of almost any creature, and believe me, you've got a ferocious mother, and it's the women that should start getting united. I mean, they're going after they've got no leadership in the women's movements.
No, but the most women's movements, like the feminists, these are women who really lost track of reality. And
yes,
as far as I'm concerned, they're not women anymore.
Yes, well, maybe what should be is, for example, Christian women's groups, or not single Christians out as opposed to other religions, but just
I know what you mean. That's a different category.
Who have humanity, and because this is women should be just up in arms about the what's happening in the sky above and what's happening to their own children. You know, the coal fly ash, when it's inhaled into the lungs, it goes deep into the terminal airways and the alveoli, and it stays there a long time, and body moisture releases a lot of the toxins. One of them is arsenic. Arsenic can cross the placenta to the baby. I mean, this is terrible stuff. I mean, women ought to be just riled up, and I hope they will be. But
now I am, because my daughter is pregnant right now. So yes, I know what's going on.
Wow.
And,
this is
I can feel when I drive in the Netherlands to a place, well, not far away, because then you're out of Holland, but anyway, for our standards, then I feel in my throat that I have caught more stuff in my breathing than normally when I'm just at home or something.
Well, there's many days, I mean, I like that to be outside, but many days I don't go outside. Now, the stuff comes inside, you know.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
But probably not in the quantity that's outside, or maybe I'm imagining. But
but there's no escaping these nanoparticles.
There's no escaping, and even if you just covered your mouth and nose, they go through your eyes.
Yeah. It goes in everywhere. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to continue working and working with my Associate Mark Whiteside, who is
Mm-hmm.
physician, public health service medical director, who is very much committed to helping people and helping the environment. And that's maybe some that will help to get through to some people.
Yeah, maybe people can do something about these particles. I'm not sure. I'm guessing homeopathically. If you take silica, and then I have to look on a little bottle to know what potency it should be. But that is being used sometimes to get larger particles that you have in your eye or something. If you take that, then the stuff that isn't supposed to be in your tissues will come out eventually.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I just know that when you get stuff deep in your lungs, and the thing is, the coal fly ash has all sorts of different chemicals. It has mercury in it.
It's like a Trojan horse, in other words.
It is very much. It has chromium valent 6, hexavalent.
Oh God, yes.
Which causes cancer.
Yes.
It has uranium, it has thorium, and it has the radioactive daughter products of those things.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
I mean, this stuff is a toxic nightmare.
Yeah.
And what kind of monster would allow that to happen? I mean, these people must have their heads very far in some dark place.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really am glad that to have made your acquaintance and to know that you're on.
I'm a feisty grandmother.
Well, you just have to keep at them.
Yeah, I do. I can't do anything else. I mean, knowing all this and not doing something about it is not an option.
Yes.
Like for you, it is no option to stop investigating.
Well, I'm hoping that that we're getting to a point. I mean, look, if in our election in the U.S., the media were constantly saying negative things about Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Republicans were saying negative things about Donald Trump. I mean, everyone was. So it wasn't like he was on a level playing field. I mean, when he won, but if the media had been honest, if it had been a balanced election, he would have had a landslide.
Yes.
I mean, this is a fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I'm really hoping that this is a what is the word, bellwether? Is that the right word? Something that's indicating what the future will be.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Bellwether, I think.
Could be. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the word.
But that's okay. But the whole thing is, I think maybe that he's sort of at the leading edge. I mean, we also are seeing things like the Brits trying to get out of the European Union. Mm-hmm. The Italians aren't happy with their status. I'm not sure. I can't speak for your country. You know this better than I do.
Well, in 2005, we had a referendum, and 52% said no to the European Constitution, the so-called Constitution. So it's very clear we are not too happy about it either.
Well, that's all. Those are all positive things.
Yes.
Because I think the indications are, things go along for a while and then they change. I mean, the cycles in human activity as well.
Also, yes, absolutely.
People get beaten down enough that they say, hey, no more. Yep. And all of a sudden they discover they really have spines and they can stand up for themselves.
Uh-huh.
So
Sometimes they need a little coaching.
Well, I hope so. This is delightful talking with you this way.
Thank you, Marvin. Well, we are at the end of our talk almost. So we will visit again and do some tiny parts. We make a appointment about that. And yes, is there something that you haven't said yet that you absolutely want to say before we say goodbye?
Only to, first of all, to compliment you. You're a delightful host. And secondly, just to reiterate what I've said before, this is the people who are now the most vulnerable from two different aspects are the people of the Low Country.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really time that their leaders stood up and spoke up for them.
Yes.
So that's basically what I have to say.
Okay, well, what I can tell you is that I'm going after all their addresses, their mail addresses and their snail mail addresses, and that I'm trying to get as many people as I can to send letters and mails to them.
Good.
And yes, I have been working with the particulate trails for a couple of years now, so people know that I know about it, and sometimes I get questions, and I'll try to get this thing off the ground. So
Well, that's excellent. And you can see from the papers some of the health effects, adverse health effects.
yes, absolutely adverse health effects, yes.
And that's from having good evidence of what is being sprayed. And what is being sprayed, it's too toxic to be allowed to go out of a smokestack.
Yeah, but it can go into us.
For you to breathe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sounds like the mercury in a dental office.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too toxic to you to throw away the dental office, but you can put it in your mouth in amalgam. Yeah,
Exactly.
same strange way of thinking.
Well, this unfortunately affects everybody, and that's the
Yes.
sad part. The most
and-
vulnerable among us, the pregnant women, the children, the elderly, and those that are compromised in various ways.
Yes. Yes, it's tragic. So, well, we are working on it and we keep on at it. So I hope that will help. And
Well,
our public now knows about it as well. So,
well, I hope we can maybe do this again at some point.
we will, no doubt. No doubt. I will contact you immediately after this show about it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Okay, dear listeners, dear viewers, that was the Minority Report, the Minority of One, or the Minority of Two in this case, report of February 19, 2017. I thank my technician for his help. I thank Marvin for his wisdom and his articles and his hard work to show what's going on, what's happening to all of us. And I thank my audience for their time. Bye-bye. Till next time.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire, the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.